If you are ready for change, we can start having an energy policy that works. Because our current energy policy does not work. We send $1 billion to other nations because of our addiction to foreign oil, and in the bargain, we're melting the polar ice caps, changing the climate of the planet. Now, here's what we can do. 80 by 2050, we can cap the emission of greenhouse gases, reduce them by 80% over the next several decades, start reversing climate change, charge polluters for the greenhouse gases they send in the atmosphere. That generates billions of dollars. But listen, those billions of dollars we then reinvest in solar and wind and biodiesel. We invest in green technologies here in the United States. We start putting people back to work in factories that are building wind turbines, in factories that are creating alternative fuels like cellulosic ethanol. We start working to make buildings more energy efficient, and we put apprentices and tradesmen back to work in retrofitting our buildings. We start building infrastructure for mass transit. All these things will create jobs that cannot be exported, and will also reduce our energy consumption and save the environment. And part of that is also to make sure that we are increasing fuel efficiency standards on cars. If we increased them by 50 miles per gallon, or even 40 miles per gallon, we would save the equivalent of all the oil we import from the Persian Gulf. Now think about what that would do. Think about that, what that would do, not just for the economy, but also for our national security. And by the way, that's how you bring down oil prices and gas at the pump, by using less of it. And when I made that proposal, I did not do it in front of some environmental group. I went to Detroit, and I said in front of the automakers, I said, we'll help you, but you've got to change your ways. And I've got to say, the room was really quiet. Nobody clapped. But that's okay, because part of what we need from the next president is somebody who will not just tell you what they think you want to hear, but will tell you what you need to hear, will tell you the truth about how we're going to meet the challenges of the future. And if you're ready for change, then we can start having a foreign policy that makes sense. You know, this administration, George Bush, seems to think there's a contradiction between us being safe and us being respected in the world. There's no contradiction. Those things are complementary. And it is true that as president, as commander-in-chief, my job will be to keep you safe. And I will do whatever is required. I will not hesitate to strike against those who would do us harm. But part of that means maintaining the strongest military on earth, and that means training our troops properly and equipping them properly and giving them proper rotations and treating them properly when they come home. No more homeless veterans, no more waiting for disability payments. Treat our veterans with honor and respect. That is a solemn obligation, a solemn obligation. But part of keeping you safe is also using our military wisely. And the war in Iraq was unwise. The war in Iraq was unwise. It distracted us from Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. They are stronger now than any time since 2001. It fanned the flames of anti-American sentiment. It created not only billions of dollars being spent overseas, but also thousands of lives lost. Thousands more maimed. Enormous strain on our military families. So that's why I opposed this war in 2002. And that's why I will bring this war to an end in 2009 and bring our troops home. It's time they came home. But I don't want to just end the war. I want to end the mindset that got us into war. I want to end the politics of fear that uses 9/11 as a way to scare up votes instead of a way to bring the country together. I want us to rediscover the power of diplomacy. I said very early in this campaign, I said, I would meet not just with our friends, but also with our enemies. Not just with leaders we like, but leaders we don't. And I have to say, that Washington, when I said this, they said, oh, you can't do that. I said, watch me. I will. And the reason is because I remember what John F. Kennedy said. He said, we should never negotiate out of fear, but we should never fear to negotiate. That's what strong presidents and strong countries do. They talk to their adversaries, they tell them where America stands, they try to resolve differences without resort to war. And when we do that, that will allow me, I want as president to go before the world community and say, America's back. America's back and we are ready to lead. And we will lead going after terrorists. We will lead on locking down loose nuclear weapons that could cause us harm. But we're also going to lead on climate change. We're also going to lead on reducing our own nuclear stockpiles in cooperation with other nuclear powers. We're also going to lead in helping reduce HIV/AIDS and other diseases in poor countries. We're also going to lead by bringing an end to the genocide in Darfur. And we're going to lead in respect for human rights and civil rights and rule of law, which is why I'll close Guantanamo and I'll restore habeas corpus. And I will say no to torture. Because if you elect me, you will have a president who has taught the Constitution, who believes in the Constitution, and who will obey the Constitution of the United States of America.